everybody on this sunny day, and today's topic is going to be slightly different from all the other videos we had previously. We're going to compare two inflatable stand-up pedal boards. Now this is my old board I bought about 4 years ago, which is it's a great board, and it's actually pretty wide. It helps you a lot with stability, but the fins are slightly on the smaller side. They're just 4 inches. Now that does have some advantages. When you actually get close to the shore, you have a lower risk of getting caught in the rocks, or like just being caught in the shallow water. And and one thing I would say, one thing about the inflatable pedal boards, they're almost half the actual weight of like a fiberglass or even like styrofoam. Because one thing you notice right away when you pick up a inflatable and you try to pick up the epoxy or fiberglass board, you feel that weight difference right away. Now, another advantage of those inflatable pedal boards, they're very compact. You can put them in a backpack, and like there's actually a backpack that comes with those boards usually, and you put it in the back of your car. You can travel anywhere you would like to, and you don't have to put them in the roof rack just like the fiberglass or even styrofoam. And there's no lifting it overhead and bringing it down. And one, I think, very important thing I kind of noticed about like basically the damage, if you hit a rock or you drop one of those fiberglass boards, you could potentially create cracks on the board, and it will actually eventually break down. With inflatable, you can drop them as much as you like and it will be fine. You wouldn't have any issues. I think that's a big thing for me, because when you transport, or if you actually trying to tour, like navigate in the very rocky waters, it does help a lot, I think, in that sense. Now this board in particular does have its, of course, pros and cons. Oh look, you can actually put your advertisement here. That was a joke. But getting back to the board, this board's responsiveness could be a disadvantage at some point. So when on a very windy day, when there's a lot of different currents happening, it does tend to turn it's a lot more responsive when you pedal, and makes it a little difficult to actually keep in track. But the responsiveness of this board does help when you're trying to make quick turns or trying to avoid obstacles. So it does have its advantages, and it's definitely, I would say, as far as the inflatable goes, to me it was pretty stable. Now the next board we're going to review is Zuppapa from Amazon. We just bought this, actually the first season we're using this board, and I'm pretty impressed with this board. It's the same length as the other one, and it's a lot more stable than the other one. But it is not as wide. It's only 32 inches wide compared to the Bodyglove, but it does come with about 9-inch fins, so the fins definitely does help a lot of the stability. The feeling when you first get on this board, it does feel a little bit less stable, but not because it's just because it's a lot more narrow, which does help you kind of go a little faster than I think the other board. And the fins, I think the fins make a big difference, because they're actually stabilizing the board a lot better than the fins on the Bodyglove, my personal opinion. And it does help with basically when you're trying to go against the waves. It really, like, you feel the difference between those two boards. Of course, with the stability, you do give up some of the responsiveness. This board does take a little longer to turn. It doesn't turn as quick as the other one, but on a windy or very like wavy day, it doesn't require as much effort to actually just keep it going straight. Because the other board does turn a lot, and sometimes you have to pedal a lot on just one side just to keep it going straight. This one is a lot more stable, that's for sure. And of course, the length of the board helps a lot, and those larger fins. And but honestly, this board, I would say, I was very impressed with, because you don't know when you get, like when you buy, honestly, my personal opinion, when you buy a board online, the other one I bought in the store actually, you don't know what you're gonna get, but so far it's very impressive. I mean, I've been this particular board in about 2 feet waves, and I was still on the board after it was done. So I didn't fall off or anything. So I think it tracked pretty well, I think, and it did pretty well as a surfboard too, a little bit, in some sense. So it does have a lot of its advantages, but I think one of the best things that caught our eye, it is a hybrid stand-up pedal board. So let's say if you feel tired or the wave's a little too high, it does pretty well as a kayak as well. It's pretty easy to transform it, because all you have to do is you just remove one part of the pedal and put the seat up, and you just put the other part and make it into a kayak paddle, and it does become a kayak. And it does pretty well as a kayak, because I wasn't sure. Like I've never used any of those like hybrids before. This was my first one, and it does pretty well, I think, as a kayak. Now, one of the most important features that this board has that I didn't see in the other boards I looked at, it does have those footrests, and it makes a huge difference when you use it as a kayak, because you have that support for your feet and your body, which does help you a lot with the leverage when you're out there. Because I've tried to use the other board as a kayak with kayak paddle, and it was almost torture, I'll be honest, because you don't have those without those footrests. It was just not comfortable at all. So one thing I definitely would suggest, if you're looking into one of those inflatable pedalboard hybrids, because I've seen a lot of them without the footrest, this is one of the features I think you should look for when you look for one of those boards, because it does help a lot from my experiences. So I think as far as the kayaking features of this board, it definitely does pretty well, and you can use this board as a kayak on the bay. Well, at least I've used it on the sound on the bay, and definitely I would say the lake too are probably good for. And then when you ready to go back on the board, it's a very easy process again to change it back, because again you just change the paddle to kayak to stand-up paddleboard paddle, and you put the seat down, and it's back, it's back to being a board, and you just get on it and start it, and catch some waves. It does have those nice little bungee cords on the front here, so you can put the paddle in there. You can put some of the cargo there if you decide to, and if you're going on longer trips, you can put some things in there. The only thing I would say, one thing I wish they had one in the back too, but I mean, it's something you could probably try and install some of those PVC glues adhesives they sell out there in the market now. But I mean, other than that, I think it's pretty versatile board. You can, like I said, you can use it as a board as a kayak, and it's definitely stable, even though it's less wider than the other board. But I think it does a great job just getting you around. And again, it's very portable too. Now, one thing when you're out in the water, you just have to be careful with is in some areas you could have some underwater rocks or any, just shallow areas with basically the longer fin. You are prone to, if you're actually in a very shallow area, there's like a rock that's sticking out, or you can't see it's barely covered, you could get stuck or damage the fin. And of course, this board and the other board being inflatable, both of them, if you hit a very sharp rock, it could puncture your boat. A lot of times, like I was saying before, I did hit a couple of rocks in my experience, in my travels out there, and they were actually fine. I think the fiberglass would probably had more damage if it was to encounter this type of rock. But you do have to be mindful. It is an inflatable, so you don't want to puncture it and lose pressure. One thing I think the other board has that this one doesn't, there's a little piece of plastic right in the front, so when you're actually going against obstacles, this plastic on the front would actually help you with the impact and protect your board in some way. Of course, if the impact, if you're going really fast and there's a really severe impact, I mean, probably not going to help at that point. But it does, like basically if you try and get off the shore, or you get into a shallow water, going head first, it would help. See, like some of if you can see here, there's a lot of rocks here. I mean, a lot of them luckily are covered, but there are some that are barely covered, and those are the ones you got to be really careful with in certain areas. And of course, if you were on a different, like if you were in a different area, or like on the bay or somewhere, you do have those sandbars too, so you could get stuck. Luckily with the sandbar, you probably don't have a high chance of puncturing your boat or damaging it to a great degree, but could experience some impact and fall off the board, and it's not always a pleasant thing. It happened to me a few times, I'll be honest, and it wasn't terrible, but it was not fun. So I would, I'll try to avoid it through the most part. And in some cases, like you see here, it's unavoidable. Or if you hit like in this case, we hit a underwater rock that was too close and we didn't catch. Or, like I said, sometimes it could be a bad wave. So no matter how good your board is or how good you are on the board, it does happen sometimes, and you just have to be prepared to go in the water. That's honestly my personal suggestion. I would always use a life jacket, because one thing about using a life jacket, I've tried to going out there without life jacket and with, is when you fall in, if it happens, you pop right out. If you fall in without the life jacket, you have to put a lot of effort to get back up, and the water is not always as flat as it is you see on the screen here, so it does make a difference. In summary, if I had to pick a board, honestly, it'll be a little tough for me to decipher, because I think both of them have different pros and cons. It really depends, but of course, Zuppapa wins in the way of being hybrid, and I think that's a big thing for me actually, because I can use it as a kayak and I can use it as a board. And I think the biggest thing about all of those inflatable boards versus, again, fiberglass or styrofoam, they are a lot lighter and a lot more versatile and a lot more compact, so you can take them anywhere. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for watching. We're going to make some more videos.